Southside 457.
Did you know that the Southside on Lamar is a National Historic Building?
This building tells a story.
I need a story to connect to with my heart.
There are so many stories in this building.
I wanted to teach other people how to naturally love themselves, and so I ventured into the field of opening my own spot.
There are people in this building with a passion to share what they know.
When I share my knowledge and my skills and my gift, I'm serving my purpose.
Preachers, teachers, architects, attorneys, engineers, artists of all kinds in this building.
What makes this place tick to me and makes it exciting is the combination of so many different kinds of people.
It's like a melting pot.
It's like a melting pot.
15 years, I've never regretted being here at Southside.
Welcome to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr. Let's get it on. You can't miss the princess.
Listen, Linda, listen.
Southside 457.
Welcome back to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr. And today we have a very, very special guest, Dr. Terry Flowers from the St. Phillips Community Center and School and Community Center. How you doing, Dr. Flowers?
Wonderful. What about you?
Man, I'm doing well. It's good to have you on the show. My kids actually went to St. Phillips.
Absolutely.
And you know both of them.
I call them rhythm and soul, and
Yeah.
they call me the beat.
Okay. So before we talk about St. Phillips and Community Center and all that you do there, and tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to Dallas, because you're from Chicago, correct?
Born and raised in Chicago.
So let's go to Chicago.
It's a long story. Born and raised in Chicago, Southside of Chicago.
That's the good part?
That's the best part. I lived in 9 different spaces between birth and high school. So I didn't stay in any one neighborhood. Chicago's laid out in a grid. Mm-hmm. So you have streets like the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. So I lived in everything from the 30s all the way up to the 111s, 110s, with the exception of the 90s. I never lived in the 90s. But we moved a lot because of gang activity, single mom trying to keep her kids safe. And after my dad was shot and killed while moonlighting driving a taxi cab, he was shot. He survived that, but didn't fully recover and passed away a few months after that. So that caused her to move us around quite a bit, a lot of gang activities. And so I graduated from high school as the first in my family to graduate. Mom and dad hadn't graduated high school. Was recruited to come to Texas to play football for Rice University.
What position did you play?
And I said, I won't Texas.
Oh.
I'm from Chicago, so I never lived in Texas. And so I ended up going to school in Iowa. Played defensive back and flanker, which is a title they don't have anymore, I guess. Sort of a tailback kind of deal, receiver, running back. Played there, and then when I got to Iowa, they moved me to outside linebacker. It's a little aggressive and tackling.
Iowa State, is that what they call it?
Yeah, this is a small liberal arts college in Iowa called Upper Iowa University.
Okay.
So I went there, did 4 years in Iowa, and I was about to graduate from college, and one of my professors said, "Hey, I would like for you to meet someone." So she took me to meet a guy named Ira Tobert, Dr. Ira Tobert, my first African-American professor, big fro, gray beard.
Gotcha.
Sat down and talked with me, and he said, "Hey, I see that you are captain of your football team. You have great grades, your leadership in your class, and so I'd love to offer you a fellowship." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "A fellowship to get your master's degree." I hadn't ever thought of a master's degree. I'm just trying to finish the BA. And he sat with me and said, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I have this invitation to try out for the Chicago Bears, and I have my teaching certificate. So to backtrack on the teaching certificate part, I went to college to major in engineering. And at that point, you filled in a bubble on your college applications. And before you took engineering, you had to take pre-engineering. And when you fill in the bubbles for pre-engineering, you put in PE.
Oh.
In their application process, PE and pre-engineering had the same. So someone on the other end assumed that this athlete coming from Chicago was
PE teacher.
PE. So they put me in education courses. Yeah. And being the oldest of 5 kids and being a person who's always enjoyed playing with and hanging around the younger kids and leading them, I kind of resonated to some of these education courses because I couldn't get out of the PE track until the next semester. So I liked the education courses, and I just sort of
stay with them.
Stuck with that. So Ira Tolbert, Dr. Ira Tolbert said, oh, wow, if you make the Chicago Bears, that would be great. You could do some wonderful things for your family, for yourself. And on the other hand, I'd like to offer you this fellowship, which is to get your master's degree here at the University of Northern Iowa. So I walked away from his office with a little intrigue. So I did some more research on a fellowship that was going to be on paper, guaranteed deal. And then the Chicago Bears invitation was just that. It was an invitation. You get to come out, you get to try. No guarantees, you get a T-shirt. And so I ended up taking the fellowship.
Did you go get your T-shirt first, though?
I did not go get the T-shirt.
You didn't go get the T-shirt.
You can buy those for
$4.99.
In fact, the way the Bears are doing, you can probably get them cheaper. But anyway. So I ended up going there to get my master's degree. But I also, at that point, decided that if I'm not going to play football, what am I going to do with all of this energy, all of this pent up? And so I channeled all of that into my academic career. I decided I wouldn't just get a master's, that I would be the youngest person to ever get their doctorate degree.
Wow. I
would be the youngest person to ever become a principal. And I was going to channel all of that energy into those pathways. And, youngest person to get their doctorate is like 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
And youngest principal was 16 years old in a one-room schoolhouse kind of deal. But so I didn't meet any of those objectives, but it basically put me in a position of being more aggressive towards my academic career.
Yeah. So you went from Iowa to the fellowship. The fellowship was in Iowa.
Yeah, it was in Iowa, University of Northern Iowa.
And you completed your doctorate in Iowa.
I completed a doctorate in New York.
In New York. So explain that. So when did you go to New York?
So I left a piece out. I completed the doctorate in New York. So I finished the master's in Iowa. Mm-hmm. And just before I finished the master's, this same professor called me in and said, hey, I want you to fill these out. So he gave me applications for Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Columbia, Princeton, and Vanderbilt. These are applications that he wanted me to fill out to apply to get my doctorate. He said, I want you to get your doctorate.
Yeah.
And the woman that I had met in college was leaving the school there in Iowa to go to New York, which was her hometown, to finish her degree. She was a physical therapy major, but the program in Iowa didn't have the full course. You could only take the prerequisites. They didn't inform her that when she enrolled there. So she was leaving to go to New York. Columbia University is in New York. Yeah. And so she left to go to New York, and I followed to go to Columbia University. That made it an easy choice. And so I worked in the public schools in Harlem, worked in a small private school in Harlem, and then I attended Teachers College at night. So Columbia has a program called Teachers College that allows you to take your courses in the evenings, and you could teach during the day. So it's set up for teachers to get graduates.
So how long did you say you were in New York?
I stayed in New York from 81 to 83.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in 83, that woman that I went to New York to be close with and get my doctorate, left to come to Texas Women's University.
Okay.
She came here in August, and by October, I was here to watch over my investments. So I came down to Texas, the place that I said I would not go, and started job hunting, and came in October, so most of the education jobs were completed, but at that point I had completed 3 master's degrees.
Oh, wow.
That's what you get along the way to your doctorate if you're smart about how you take your classes.
Yeah.
But I hadn't finished my doctorate. I came here, had to take a job as a teacher's assistant in Denton Independent School District because I couldn't find a job. And I was a teacher's aide in a special ed classroom from October to January.
Yeah.
And then there was a paper called the Dallas Times-Herald.
I remember Dallas Times-Herald.
Times-Herald. They had an ad for the opportunity at St Phillips in South Dallas. And so I applied, came to several interviews for that position. And then I was called by Highland Park, United Methodist Church. They were starting a child care program there, and they offered me a position. And I said, let me think about and pray about that, and I will call you in the morning. 30 minutes later, St. Phillips called. And so I took the position at St. Phillips. And
what was the position?
I took the position as principal.
Okay.
So here you have a 25-year-old guy with 3 master's degrees. And the reason that they tell me that they sent me through so many interviews, they thought it was too good to be true, that I would want to be there in South Dallas, and that I had, these credentials and the teaching experience. Because remember, I was teaching during the day and still going to take my courses in the evenings.
So then you came to be a principal over there. So when you first started there, it was just a job, or was it a passion?
It was, what attracted me there was the neighborhood.
The neighborhood.
And so I'm, south side of Chicago.
Yeah.
So the South Dallas, nothing in comparison to the challenges.
It didn't scare you, right?
It didn't scare me at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, this felt like home almost, right? So I knew I could have an impact. And I knew what was there then could be changed.
So when you started, did you, how long have you been at St. Phillips now?
I came to St. Phillips in 1984.
Okay.
I started interviewing in 1983. So November of 1983 was my first interview to try to come on board at St. Phillips.
All right. So that number, for the people that don't do math that quick, that's 40 years, right?
40 years, heading towards 41.
Yeah. Wow. So, so you said you wanted to make an impact.
Well, so, you're talking about a guy whose parents didn't graduate from high school. You're talking about a guy when I graduated from high school, it was like a family reunion. Everybody showed up.
Yeah.
When I graduated from college in Iowa, people came from all over, and they dressed in white and red. So I'm walking in, our graduation was in a gym. So when I walk in, I think they brought in a choir, because over on the side here, all of these people in red and white, right? They decided that they were going to color code just for my graduation. So it was a big deal.
Yeah. And
education brought me out of those challenging situations in Chicago. And I go back to Dr. Ira Tobert, who spent just a few minutes with me talking about a fellowship, but he turned a light on in me because he said, I think you could become a principal, and that would be great. But I think you could do a whole lot more. I think you'd become superintendent of school. I think you could get your doctorate degree. He started increasing and elevating my aspirations.
So what was that when you said he turned a light on you? Like what was he doing?
Sure.
What was he saying? Or
he wasn't very dramatic. He's soft-spoken. Mm-hmm. My first African-American professor.
Yes.
He wasn't even my professor at that time.
Yeah.
But he inspired me to think above and beyond what I was imagining for myself.
So he kept giving you different targets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
And you're like,
just
oh, hold on.
think about the possibilities beyond.
Yeah.
I know you've graduated high school. I know you've graduated college, and that's big for your family,
Yeah.
but there's a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that in my educational pathway, a teacher or two had
Yeah.
planted that in me, or tried to say that to me, but it didn't resonate until that time.
So over at St. Phillips, you do chapel. And kind of what you're telling me about Dr. Tolbert, I see you instilling these principles and things in those young kids and parents. You challenge the parents just as much as you challenge the students as well.
Yeah, I think that's the whole purpose of school, right? To teach kids to think and not be thought for, not be in a position where everybody's telling you exactly what you need to do to inspire you to look beyond. And so St. Phillips being a Christian school, I'm able to tell a kid that, you could have superpowers.
Yeah.
You have them. They're in you, right? They need to be activated. And to get kids to think that anything is possible in their lives. The St. Phillips Creed and all that it stands for is mighty.
We have some time. Can you say the same? I can't remember it.
St. Phillips Creed.
Look at me.
Yeah, look at me.
I am more than what you see. Destiny is mine.
If it is
to be, it is up to me. Society may condemn,
but only I determine my path.
Okay.
My people have suffered
and died
for my chance to read and do math.
Okay.
Just as sacrifices were made to make my future bright.
See, I fell off.
It is my responsibility to do what's right. I must start today to pave the way.
Yeah.
The community and the world need my contribution. In success, I will not stray. The bias, the rumors, nor the stereotypes will hinder my growth. I claim dignity and prosperity. My God promises both. Look at me. I am sharp, empowered, talented, and proud without limit. I will use my education to explore new heights. The sky is the limit if I put my mind in it. When I say stick it out, I don't mean a hand. I will persevere to play my role in God's omniscient plan. I will live by put-ups and not put-downs for my sister and my brother. I care for you. I respect you. If I don't, why should another? Success is my right and failure is my option. I have the voice. The consequences I will accept, for I made the choice. Look at me. Great things lie ahead. Judge me not by what you've been told, but by what's in my head.
And the things for for people who are watching this, most of those kids, if not all of those kids, you can grab them in the hall and ask them to quote that creed, and they will be able to just from start to finish go through that whole creed.
Absolutely. We start at 2 years of age. 2 years start saying it, but by the time they get to kinder and first grade, you are actually able to ask them questions about the creed.
And the reason I know, because I had 2 kids that go there, and we had to teach this creed and go over it with them. So when I say know it, I know a little bit of it, but
it embodies what we expect our students to live by while they're there and in their lives beyond St. Phillips. It's kind of a guiding force. Schools do the Pledge of Allegiance and all of that, and so we do the pledge. They know that, but the creed is really the more powerful tool.
So you've kind of taken a role, not just in the school, but in the community, because now you came and started the whole community center and the education part, and then you allow kids to come in from the community. And not only do you allow kids to come into the community, you started investing in the community around the school.
Yeah, so the genesis of St. Phillips was through a church.
Okay.
So a small group of Black Episcopalians wanted to get a church started in South Dallas. There weren't a lot of Black Episcopalians around.
Yeah.
The Episcopal Diocese had some property. They gave them the church. So they started a church.
Okay.
But that group identified that there was a juvenile delinquency problem in the neighborhood. So they wanted to do something about that. They started an athletic program to get kids off the street. And then they started doing Saturday night dances, keep kids occupied.
This was in the 80s.
This would go back. They started, that church started in 1946.
Oh, wow.
Right. So they went along for about 10 years. And after that, they were adding these programs to support the kids in the neighborhood. Then a 4-year-old kid was hit by a car. And so at that point, they said, let's start a daycare center. And the daycare center added grade levels, became a school. The church congregation never really grew. They didn't get a lot of people to join that church, so the members split and went on to other Episcopal churches in town, but they left it there. Yeah. So more Episcopalians, black and white, joined together to help keep St. Phillips afloat and keep it alive. And so what we have today is basically a result of a church being responsive to challenges in the neighborhood surrounding it. And so, to your point, the athletic program that we have, Meals on Wheels that we have there, senior citizens transportation program that we have there, we do a fancy hat tea party for the elderly, supporting the neighborhood surrounding us. There are like 64 basketball teams in our basketball league. Sort of like a YMCA or Boys Club type program that leaves the space open. But South Dallas has been victimized by, public policy, by being mandated as a wet zone where you could buy liquor. And so our campus, when I got there, we were surrounded by 48 liquor-related businesses within 4 blocks of our campus. Some next door, some across the street, motels. And so as a ministry, continuing to be responsive to the needs of the neighborhood, that's caused us to look at economic development, public safety, and housing in the area surrounding us. And we've been making some headway there.
So explain what you guys are doing, because you're kind of making light of it, but you've done a whole lot with you came in and you start out as a principal, you come ahead of the school, and now you're part of this big movement that's going on in that community, and you've made these decisions. You started buying up property before people are coming in to buy it. Now you saw this way back when, and now you're one of the leaders in the community with this new development economic transition that's happening in the area. Like, explain that, where the vision came from and where it's going.
Yeah, so I'm a native of Chicago, and so I think that seeing what happened there and being a beneficiary of social service programming like meals programs and the things that a single mom might need to help her children survive and thrive in a community. So that community center and those community services parts of what we do, like Meals on Wheels, all of that resonated well. But I don't know that I saw as much of what we were going to be experiencing as we see today. Gotcha. I did see that what we are encountering right now must change, has to change.
Gotcha.
And so the steady flow of tackle this, tackle that, how do we make this change? And so what is going on now has been, in many ways, placed us in a position where we are trying to make sure that the success of the school doesn't adversely affect the people who live around the school.
Gotcha.
So this crack house across the street can't stay.
Yeah.
We knock it down, but then the neighborhood becomes more attractive because that crack house is gone.
Yeah.
These 48 liquor
gentrification.
These 48 liquor stores, we're down to just 4 now.
Yeah.
When they go away, now it's more attractive.
Yeah.
And so since we led the charge to get rid of a lot of that stuff, we also led the charge for making it more attractive for people who don't live there.
Yeah.
So let's step in.
That's the flip side of that.
Let's step in and make sure that we are being proactive, having our monthly community meetings, having studies done in the neighborhood, getting the neighbors to articulate what they want to see happen in their community, and figure out who we can partner with to help actualize that.
So, how are you? What are some things you said the meetings that you had with the people in the community? But like, what are some things that you're doing to keep that from, I guess, that gentrification or regentrification?
Well, we believe that market rate housing needs to come to South Dallas. We believe in a concept called attainable housing, that people of all walks of life should have an opportunity to live in that neighborhood. And we quite honestly don't want it to be all low and moderate income housing. So, because we believe that ultimately God wants a community that looks like one that he would smile upon.
Yeah.
He'd smile because there are all types of people there. You know, you have a billionaire living across the street from a domestic worker. The reality is that domestic worker's values that she has or he has for his or her children are the exact values that this billionaire wish that his kids had.
Yeah.
And they don't have it because, and not all, but they may not have it because they're not having that opportunity to interact with what I consider to be the real world.
Okay, gotcha.
And if you get that right blend of people, then you won't need city, state, or federal support. The neighborhood will take care of itself. It then will become sustainable.
So speaking of that, you guys are doing a lot. Talk about some of the things that you're developing right now and what's going on Martin Luther King and surrounding.
The 1600 block of Martin Luther King is now under renovation. By October of this year, 2024, there'll be a sit-down restaurant there called Ruthie's. There'll be a new clinic. Baylor will have a clinic on MLK. There's a dessert shop coming run by Frio's African-American business, another African-American business called Life Plate. They do plant-based meals. They'll be there on MLK. So it's basically taking that strip of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and placing it in a situation where when they finish the expressway changes, when you get off at Martin Luther King, Pennsylvania Avenue exit, you're going to come across a really nice looking retail strip. Yeah. And the desire there is for people to change their opinion about the promise and the possibilities of the neighborhood and the people who live in that neighborhood.
So,
some housing coming. We broke ground on 7 housing units. In fact, Matthew Southwest is one of our partners with that and helping to make sure that you have a continuum of housing. So some people need to rent. Some people need to lease. Some people need, perhaps a ground lease, and then you need traditional homes. Yeah. You need housing for senior citizens. In fact, in 2032, you'll have the housing crisis for the elderly. Basically, those our children and our grandchildren won't be in a position where they can take care of us.
Oh, wow.
Like we may be able to, for those of us who can't take care of our parents now, because they won't secure the same level of economic success that their parents and their grandparents did. So
yeah. So what do you want people to know about Dr. Flowers?
What do I want people to know about me? I serve. It's what I do, and my faith is my fuel. That's what keeps me going, and that's what I try to instill in other people, and especially in children.
So where do you see in 5 to 10 years? I know that's a big gap. That's like, but what do you see? What do you see? What's your vision for South Dallas and that whole area and all that comes?
My vision for South Dallas is not the same as everyone else's. Yeah. I don't believe it will be sustainable for all of South Dallas to be low and moderate income housing.
And some people think that that's okay.
Some people think that we just need to build more affordable housing. That's why I use the word attainable.
Gotcha.
The reality is, and it's been proven over and over again, that it doesn't work. And so we need the right mix. And to do that, you need an education source system, either public, charter, private. To do that, you need safety. And so St. Phillips has what we call courtesy patrol. Southside on Lamar has a little bit of that. You see guys and women walking around. So we have folks who are just moving around the neighborhood, nudging people to move to another corner, or and we get resistance, and there's a phone call that's made if they want to take that route and just bring about safety. Economic development is critical, and so one of the things that we want to put in place in South Dallas is the opportunity for people to own pieces of real estate. We are 1.5 miles from downtown Dallas.
Yeah.
The property values between downtown and St. Phillips have increased by 75% in just a 4-year period. And so the property values will increase. So there's a concept called a real estate investment trust. So some of the properties that we own on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, even though we're going to get those finished out, there'll be an opportunity for people who live in the neighborhood right now to invest $25 a month if they like. And that $5 or $25 a month investment may not benefit them personally, but it will be a huge investment for their children and their grandchildren in 10, 20, 30 years because of our proximity to downtown Dallas. So we'll have buildings, or not buildings, but real estate in the area that can perpetually bring about some economic support for those who currently live here.
So let me ask you this. So before we end the show, do you have anything that you want to say that I haven't asked you, or something you want to leave people with?
Other than I believe that we can bring about dignified urban revitalization, and we, St. Phillips, can be at the forefront of helping to show that it can be done in a positive and effective way. In fact, our 10-year target is to become the ultimate model for successful school-based community transformation. We believe our model is applicable for other communities here in Dallas and around the country if they have the same challenges that we're confronted with.
I got you. So I want you to look at this camera and tell people where they can go in and show support, where they can find out more information, and all of that.
Our website is 1600. What is our website? St Phillips 1600.org.
I was just looking at it. Oh man, I don't even know. Let's see. Yes, stphillips1600.org.
Yeah, our website is stphillips1600.org. The 1600 is connected to our address, which is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Dallas. So those of you who are informed, you'll think about another 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But in our space, everything happens in mostly a harmonious fashion.
Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
We're gonna have you back. Get some more time. We can just talk about some other things too.
Okay.
But we're gonna get the principal on the show.
Okay.
We'll have her.
All right.
Here.
Thank you for doing this. I think
thank you for doing it.
You are spot on. The South Dallas. You're a native of Dallas.
I'm a native of Dallas.
Native of Dallas. So the South Dallas you grew up with is gone.
Yeah.
And another one is coming, which is not totally bad.
Yeah.
But there's an opportunity to guide it in a way that's respectful and has a humanitarian leg to it. So.
Well, I appreciate you.
All right.
And thank you for tuning in to Southside 457. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr. And until next time, peace.
Southside 457.